Good morning, football, everybody. Welcome back to New York City. We are now joined by a sports media icon. You know him from WFAN's Mike and the Mad Dog and Mike's On. His 30-year run as the king of New York sports radio is truly unparalleled. Two-time winner of the Marconi Award for Major Market Personality, and the magazine Talkers named him the #1 on list of most important sports talk radio hosts back-to-back years. Please welcome to the breakfast table, returning for a second time, New York's #1, Mike Francesa.
Yeah! What's up, Mike?
Not back-to-back years, every year.
Every year.
Oh!
Every year in the history of the poll.
Not back-to-back like Drake, man.
No, not back-to-back, every year.
So what are you doing over there?
What's happening?
I doodle. I always kept the paper in front of me for 30 years.
Is that right?
I always opened it to the page where they have what they call the latest line, or the standings, and I doodle. I doodle, and the whole page will be, everyone who knows me knows the whole page will be covered by the end of the show. I doodle during the show.
And
that's what I do.
The Hollywood medium.
There you go.
Let's go on eBay. Sign that. We'll do it. So
Absolutely.
you're with the New York tabloid right there. The New York tabloids have been all over the place the last few weeks over this giant. First it was Jim Schwartz, then it was Patricia, then it was McDaniels is who they want, and now it's Shurmur. So you've been off the radio during all this stuff. It feels like the New York media scene is all over the map. What is your read on this Giants head coaching search, and what do you think of Pat Shurmur for the Giants as head coach?
I'm not overwhelmed, but I think that everyone just jumped to a lot of conclusions. The only thing that I knew or felt, and I didn't spend a lot of time talking to the Giants about their GM search, which to me was really underwhelming also. That's not breaking any ground by bringing in a guy who basically has been a Giant forever, okay? So you're not going to get a whole lot of changes in that organization with that move. So that's #1. But I did know that the one thing that was not going to happen is they were not going to hire a guy who didn't have previous coaching experience.
Right.
Because they felt that this guy just disintegrated. You know, when in the NFL, if you're a young coach who's the first-time head coach, you either become a problem solver or the water gets higher, and then the water goes over your head, and when the water goes over your head, you're gone. He handled everything so badly as the crisis began in training camp with Beckham hurt, to every move he made was wrong. And it just seemed like he came back with a very different attitude this year. He slicked his hair back, he changed some of his clothes. And I just think he was a very different person this year than he was the first year. Everything went wrong, and he completely disintegrated. So the only thing I thought was that they would hire a guy who had been and a head coach somewhere. And I think a lot of times the feeling in the past had been the Giants is not a place for first-year head coaches or first-time head coaches. So I think from that standpoint, you're looking for someone. Now, to find a guy who's been successful as a head coach is hard to do. So you're usually going to get a guy who's failed. I think Shurmur's an okay pick. The one problem I'd have with Shurmur is his personality is going to be a tough sell in New York. It really is.
They asked Mike Holmgren about it, and Mike Holmgren said he couldn't handle the Cleveland media.
And this is going to be really hard for him. And unless he really understands and really does a little bit of a metamorphosis in that area, he will have a big problem. So the idea that doesn't matter, it does matter. It does matter here because a lot of the previous coach's problems were when he was in front of the camera or at a press conference. Those press conferences now in this league can kill you. How you handle them, you can be good at them or you can be really bad at them. If you're really bad at them, especially in big towns, it can hurt you a lot. And it definitely can kill coaches. And I would worry about Shurmur in that regard.
That's so powerful and great advice. I know you got a question, Kyle. Either be a problem solver or you'll be part of the problem.
Or you're
I've
gone.
seen it firsthand. That is great advice for new head coaches.
Also, perception's reality, so what you look like how it all comes off at those press conferences is big.
No doubt. Mike, the reality in Pittsburgh is they just lost at home to the Jacksonville Jaguars. The offensive coordinator's fired. There's a lot of internet chatter coming towards the head coach. What do you make on the state of the Steelers?
Well, the offense coordinator's gone because it's the oldest adage, throw one to the alligators so they don't eat you. I mean, that's basically it. Someone had to go. Someone had to pay the price. He shouldn't have paid the price. Let's be honest. Tomlin's been a bad head coach for a couple of years now. He has been an incredibly successful. He's one of my favorite coaches. He's just gotten weird in recent years on how he's coaching. This year, I've never seen a coach take a tact. 7 weeks to go before the season was over, he was talking about playing the Pats in the AFC title game. I've never even heard anybody do that before. Whoever looks past an opponent, he looked past every opponent. He talked about playing them. When he played them the first time, he said, "We will meet twice." He talked about it like it was a foregone conclusion. Well, you better get to that game if you do. But in game, his decision-making is so bad, and it is such a colossal waste of talent. They never adjusted to any of the simple stuff Jacksonville was doing. Okay? They never took care of Bortles out of the backfield. They never took care of throwing the ball. All the simple throws that he gave them. But the biggest problems were just the fact that he did not have his team respect an opponent. And I think that's a huge problem for a head coach. Plus, not kicking that onside kick. Forget how bad the onside kick was.
The decision.
Trying to take the onside kick there and not kick off, knowing that they would never let Bortles try to make a play there. It would have been three downs.
Hand off.
And kick and punt it back. You're going to pick up a lot of real estate. And you know what? Your quarterback, he can win the game on one play.
Right.
You know, I've tried to say Brown wasn't the best wide receiver because I don't personally like him. He's now the best wide receiver.
Yes,
I mean, of course, Julio Jones doesn't make plays anymore because the offensive coordinator doesn't know how to get him the ball. So he can't make plays anymore. I mean, you saw how Atlanta ran those plays from the goal line. I mean, when they were first and goal, how they lost that game is ridiculous how they lost that game. Those plays were so bad. Oh,
like the underhand shovel pass?
Oh, my God. And the fourth down play cannot be your fourth down play. Plus, think about it. These 3 games, other than the New England game, which was, to me, a mismatch, the 3 games, the only one I didn't think was a mismatch was Tony Romo. The 3 other games were decided by terrible coaching.
Yeah.
All year, Atlanta Falcons have wasted their talent. I thought they were the most talented team in the league. They let Philly do the only things they could possibly do to stay in that game. Their game decisions, going back to the Super Bowl and all through this year. And listen, he gets his team ready to play. He's a terrible game coach, big game coach. Terrible. I mean, absolutely hideous. He better get better really fast because that team's very talented. Number 2, you saw it with Pittsburgh. He did not have his team ready to play, and they make terrible decisions. And then you get to New Orleans, where both teams tried everything they could possibly do to hand the other team the game. And after they get a punt blocked, where if you get a punt block late in the game, odds on winning the game are about 100-1 against. There's no more devastating play in football than a punt block. Okay, if you look, teams that get punt blocked usually lose the game. So you get a punt block, which was terrible. The Case Keenum pass after the first touchdown was awful. Zimmer gagged. He never got aggressive with his defense ever in the fourth quarter. Never.
Pinned back the ears. Just
never. I mean, never once. You can't show Drew Brees the same thing every play.
Pick it apart. He surgical.
And he did pick it apart.
He did. Now,
and then how you can get beat on that last play is it's intolerable. I mean, there's no excuse for it.
Now, speaking of the New Orleans Saints, you've always been okay with bravado. And like we know, you've been number 1 for 30 years, more dominant than UConn's women's basketball.
That's close. I don't know about that. I mean, they might be first.
They're dominant. But Sean Payton, he's about bravado, and you know him well.
I know Sean well, yes.
And he did the choke signal. He did the broom in the locker room. And he also did a little scold, chant, taunt to the fans. How do you feel about what he did?
I don't have any problem with
that.
You have no problem with it.
I don't have any problem with any of it, as long as you coach your team. I don't care if you want to act like that, as long as you back it up. Here's what he did wrong was, how dumb was his second challenge? I mean, how stupid what did he think was going to happen on that second challenge? I mean, come on. If I would have turned to him, I would have said, you're not winning this challenge. Pick up the flag. You're not going to win this challenge. That was giving it away. Thank God nothing happened after that, because that can't be. You can't leave yourself with no challenges in that spot. Forget spurning the timeouts. That was just a wish and a hope.
That's what it was.
Okay? But forget all that. Here's what you have to do. You cannot get beat on that play. You have got to have guys back to make sure there's someone. You know this. Come on now.
Multiple safeties. Defense.
There's only a few things you can do when you have no timeouts and only a couple of seconds left.
That's right.
You got to get so many yards and you got to step out of bounds. Otherwise you have no way to play. So I mean, that was so badly handled. That's what I worry about. Is not being. Hey, how come New England's here every year? Because they have a great quarterback. And they have a coach who never makes a mistake. But when he faces coaches who don't make mistakes, then it's a fair game. And that's why, if you notice, when he faced Tom Coughlin twice, Tom beat him.
All right, Mike, hey, don't empty the bag. We got
more. As we always say, back after this. Mike Francesa is going to be joining us after.
I've said that a few times, yes.
All right, we'll be back. This is Good Morning Football. More with Mr. Mike Francesa. Last time you were here, we played Francesa. Are you down to play that again? little history, a little art, a little music.
Whatever you want.
Little music.
love it.
We can talk about Adele.
It's your show.
Tay.
Amazing.
Back here in New York, of course, you think New York, you think Mike Francesa. We were lucky enough to ask Mike Francesa to stick around here for another segment. We figured we might have some fun here because last time you were here, we played what we called Fran Says So, giving you two things, you pick one of them, whichever one you like better, and it could be sports or music or whatever. Are you ready?
Yeah.
All right,
Let's go.
This is great. We don't know where this is going to go.
I just don't know. The doodling's throw. Is this like a? Is it like a tactic where you're trying to throw us off?
No, this is true. This is what I've always done.
Jackson Pollock. This is incredible.
It's a little Jackson.
They said it's either geniuses or crazy people that do it all the time.
Is that true?
Yeah.
Well, I've been doing it for 30 years. I'm telling you, during the whole show, this is what I would do. With my headset on, and I
It might be both, Mike.
That's it.
Like he's coloring.
We'll tweet a photo of it later. So this is Fran Says So. I want to know the better clutch quarterback. Is it Joe Montana or is it Tom Brady?
The better clutch quarterback, the better postseason quarterback I can handle for you is Montana. Montana on the grand stage was perfect. Brady has not been that. I argued a lot with callers who wanted Brady to be the best quarterback of all time. My contention was he wasn't for this reason only. He was not the best regular season quarterback that I've ever seen. I thought over the last 40 years, the best quarterback, the best player in the league, day in, day out, regular season was Peyton Manning. And Manning was a better regular season quarterback than Brady. Just look at the MVPs and the performances. And he was not the best postseason quarterback I've seen. Montana was that. So he's neither of those, which say, oh, I can't make him the best of all time. He's an all-time great, and his length of career and his durability and how often they've been there is enormously important. But Montana never stumbled in these games, and that's a big difference. So I think Montana, on the grand stage, Montana was the most perfect quarterback and the best player I saw in those games. He never stumbled in those games. All
right, Mike, you get to number one because you can talk everything. So the next one here, biggest superstar in her prime. Who was bigger, Madonna or Judy Garland?
Madonna or Judy? You know, Judy Garland's career started before I was around, obviously, as a child star. I would say, believe it or not, if you want to know who's talented, Judy Garland's more talented. I actually saw Judy Garland in person perform.
Really?
And yes, my mother was a member of the Westbury Music Fair, and she used to go every week. She was a season ticket holder, and she dragged me off a field. Now, I didn't have a dad, so she said, "Go home and get dressed. You have to go." I said, "Ma, I got a game tonight." She said, "You have to go with me. I have no one to go with. I have to go. You're going to see this." So it was an August night in 1967. We went, and I yelled at her the whole way in the car that she took me off the field to do this. I don't want to do it. I don't want to go. Blah blah. I still talk about that night today. It was one of the most amazing things I ever saw in my life.
Wow.
Liza Minnelli showed up. Peter Allen played the piano for Liza Minnelli on the stage that night from the stands.
Great.
And Judy Garland was 20 minutes late, so everyone said she wasn't going to show up.
Yeah.
She came out. She got a standing ovation after every song. Most amazing thing I ever saw. But the most talented person I've ever seen in person in my life, in person, is Julie Andrews.
Oh, Fräulein Maria. That's the GOAT right there.
The most talented person
Mike, let's
I've
go to
ever
U.S.
seen.
history. Better U.S. war general in this country's history, George S. Patton or George Washington?
How do you do it?
Now, that one's, you know what, I don't know if I have an answer for that one. But I'm not that big on the, Patton was good. Absolutely nuts. Absolutely nuts.
Yes.
Certifiable. But so was MacArthur, so what's the difference? So, I mean, we know that's part of being a good general. You gotta be a little
crazy.
Nuts. You have to be a little nuts. And think about being a general, you gotta be nuts.
Yes.
But as far as Washington, you know, he was like an emperor. So I'd say Washington. For sure. Because he was like a king.
Yeah?
Better 2018 male pop star, Charlie Puth or Bruno Mars?
Now, Bruno Mars is much more talented. I've seen both of them, actually. Bruno Mars at the Super Bowl.
I've seen everybody.
Well, here's why, because I take my daughter to Jingle Ball every year.
Yeah, we saw Charlie Puth there together.
Charlie Puth is there every year.
He was amazing.
He's right in the middle of the show. Every year, about the fifth guy is Charlie Puth. Okay? He comes out, he looks like he hasn't basically taken a shower.
T-shirt.
Okay?
Do your hair.
Well, hey, Charlie, listen, buy a shirt before you come next year, okay? I think he's worn the same shirt every year. I've seen Charlie Puth 4 years in a row now.
Same shirt.
Right, you know, and if Taylor Swift's on, she closes the show.
Yes.
This year, Sheeran opened the show.
Yeah.
Sheeran.
Ed Sheeran opened the show, right? He's really good. The first time I saw him, he was with Taylor Swift, because I've taken my daughter to see Taylor Swift about 5 times.
Of course.
So he opened for her at the Meadowlands years ago, but I take her every year to the Jingle Ball. And this year, Ed Sheeran opened. and Taylor Swift closed.
Yeah.
And Charlie Puth was about number 6.
He's
So you know what he is? He's like a
Boogaloo
utility
shirt.
infielder. That's what he is.
And you can count on
He's the Louis Soho of
Yes,
Lobsters.
the Louis Soho.
Yeah, he's a Louis Soho. That's it. In a bad shirt.
Yes.
That's it.
All right, well, let's talk about the Jeter and Mariano of social media. Which one's better, Mike, Twitter or Facebook?
Ooh.
You know, Twitter by far, but you know what? I'm not a Facebook user, so I can't help you with that one. I don't spend a lot of time on Facebook. Twitter,
You like it?
It's actually been a terribly run company because it's almost something that people in a lot of industries need and rely on, but have not been charged for. So I think they have not monetized their product. I think they've done a terrible job monetizing their product. So the guys there need to get their act together. But I think they're a very indispensable company.
Get that stock. Get that stock before it goes up.
No, don't buy that. You know
last one for you.
Buy Amazon.
There we go.
Nvidia.
Nvidia? I'm writing that down. Doodle right now.
We have about a minute
Chips.
left here, Mike.
Buy
Last
Nvidia.
one for Francesa. Better CBS NFL Today star, Boomer or Burleson?
Oh, come on.
Oh, please, Burleson.
Boomer's going to walk through that door.
I made it. I made it.
Boomer. I mean, come on.
They made me ask it. I just work
Oh,
here.
yeah, Boomer, come on, please. I mean, you know,
What do you mean, come on, please?
second-rate guy. Serious?
Really quickly, T.O., does he get in the Hall of Fame this year?
You know, he deserves it, but I never met I shouldn't say I never met a coach that liked him, but a lot of them said he was really disruptive. So I think that does matter, but I think with what he accomplished, he's a Hall of Famer. He deserves it. He was an overwhelming player. He really was. So I'd say he deserves it, you know. But sometimes guys don't get in. Look at Albert Bell. I mean, Albert Bell has no chance of ever coming close, and if you look at his numbers, they were scary.
Yeah.
So sometimes they'll keep guys out, but I think he deserves it. I really do.
All right. Well,
Anything
we
else
have to
before we go?
I wish. Who's going to the Super Bowl?
Who's going? New England's going to win. You know, everyone's on Tom Coughlin this week, but that's really, I think, a little overrated for one reason. Those 2 Super Bowls, remember something, Eli Manning was great in the fourth quarter of both of those games. He had amazing plays in both games and great fourth quarters and had very big games. So take that into account. But you've got to get there with 4 guys. If you have to blitz, you're dead. He will go no huddle and spread guys out and try and wear them down. Look for a lot of dink and dunk from Brady this week.
Hey, Mike, Blake Bortles was great in the fourth quarter last week.
Yeah, he was, which is hard to understand. He'd do it 2 weeks in a row.
We got to run. One word, Eagles or Vikings, straight up.
Vikings.
Okay.
Vikings.
Mike Francesa, everybody. Awesome stuff. Love to see you. Super Bowl, maybe you'll be in Minnesota.
I don't know. It's
You
cold
should
there.
go. You invented Radio Row. You got to go there.
You
You own
invented
that
Radio
thing.
Row. You got
And
to
it's doing fine without me, so that's it.
Coming up, Case Keenum, speaking of the Vikings, they